Hey loves, this is your girl Mariah Sincere, and I'm back with another Bomb Live. For those of y'all who are new, this channel is for people who know that we are not being told the full story. I cover conservative politics, breaking news, and institutional power, not to repeat headlines, but to challenge them. I don't chase narratives, I analyze incentives, consequences, and what comes next. And today, guys, I'm not really in a happy mood because I don't have happy news or good news to report, honestly and truly. So, um, a Republican congressman has passed away at the age of 65, and his name is Doug LaMalfa. Now, to be completely transparent with y'all, I did not know this congressman before he passed away. I never heard his name before. And I'm going to show y'all some video clips of him giving some speeches. And he seems like a man of few words, but when he does speak, it's meaningful, it's impactful. He by no means gives me the impression that he was the type of man who was seeking out the spotlight. You know, there are a lot of people like that in Congress who are trying to do the work, who are trying to work on the behalf of the people. And unfortunately, they get overshadowed by the loudest ones in the room. But it's very unfortunate. So I'm going to go ahead and read this from CNN. Give me 1 second while I pull up the screen. Okay, so CNN reports. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so this is him in the picture. This was reported today. California GOP Congressman Doug LaMalfa dies at 65. Doug LaMalfa, a longtime Republican congressman from Northern California, has died. House GOP leadership announced Tuesday he was 65. 65 is very young. As a fourth-generation rice farmer and business owner, LaMalfa was a respected voice in Washington on agriculture and rural communities, including as chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus. He was influential in Congress's response to the deadly wildfires that struck his home state, including his sprawling district, which includes Chico, California, in recent years. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a close friend of the congressman, confirmed LaMalfa's death in a statement Tuesday. Jackie and I are devastated about the sudden loss of our friend Congressman Doug LaMalfa. Doug was a loving father and husband and staunch advocate for his constituents in rural America, Emmer wrote in a post on X. Our prayers are with Doug's wife Jill and their children. Representative Richard Hudson, the House GOP campaign chief and another close friend of LaMalfa, remembered the congressman Tuesday as a tireless advocate for the people of Northern California. Doug was a principled conservative and a tireless advocate for the people of North California. He was never afraid to fight for rural community farmers and working families. Doug brought great authenticity and conviction to everything he did in public service. Hudson wrote in a statement noting that the two served on the Agriculture Committee together and enjoyed discussing all things cars, including their shared love of NASCAR. I will deeply miss my amigo. To me, when I hear about this man, this sounds like a man of integrity. This sounds like a man who was of service to his community, a family man, a wholesome man, everything that the left hates. And I say that for a reason. I hate to bring this into it, but I saw some comments regarding his passing that are just simply disturbing. I mean, we learned from what happened to Charlie Kirk that a lot of them simply want us unalived. But I feel like it's just disappointing and disheartening to continue to see that confirmed or reaffirmed time and time again. LaMalfa's absence will reverberate immediately in the narrowly divided House. Speaker Mike Johnson is overseeing one of the thinnest House majorities in history and can now only afford to lose two Republicans in any party line vote on the floor. The current House makeup stands at 218 Republicans and 213 Democrats. California will need to hold a special election to replace LaMalfa in the coming weeks. The seat is likely to remain in GOP hands. LaMalfa represented a district that President Trump won by roughly 25 points in the last election. While California Democrats have redrawn the district for the 2026 midterms, the special election is expected to be held under the current lines, which means a safe Republican seat. President Donald Trump opened his remarks at a House GOP member retreat Tuesday by paying tribute to the late congressman. I want to express our tremendous sorrow at the loss of a great member, great member, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, who passed away yesterday, as you probably have heard, the president said, speaking from the stage of the Kennedy Center, which the board recently renamed to include Trump. The president praised LaMalfa's leadership and policy focus, highlighting his role in Western issues. He was the leader of the Western Caucus, a fierce champion of California water issues. He was great on water, Trump said, a true defender of American children. He was a defender of everybody. How you could hate somebody like this, I don't know. And I'm going to show y'all a few clips of speeches that he gave. There weren't many on TikTok, but I found some. So let me go to my TikTok page. One second. Okay. So here's him giving a speech on the Inflation Reduction Act.
We must use budget reconciliation to fully repeal the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, the green subsidies within that. They are $1 trillion disaster, driving up energy costs, undermining grid reliability, and forcing out dependable power sources like coal, natural gas, as well as the hydroelectric dam destruction we see happening. Keeping even one of them threatens real spending reductions and makes it nearly impossible to rein in the national deficit of around $2 trillion brought on by the Biden administration and Democrat majorities in the House and Senate. The stakes are very clear. Europe's energy crisis shows what happens when a country relies too much on unreliable renewables. Meanwhile, China profits off of our bad policies, selling us solar panels and electric vehicles while expanding its own coal production and its power plants. We cannot let the left's green welfare agenda weaken our energy security while boosting our biggest adversary any longer. Full repeal means saving taxpayers $1 trillion in wasteful spending, easing inflation and lowering costs for families and small businesses, and restoring energy reliably and the security by stabilizing our grid. We must use budget reconciliation to fully repeal the
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so one comment says that it made inflation work in reference to the Inflation Reduction Act that Republican Doug LaMalfa is seen speaking on here. Another one says the IRA helped America so much Republicans have zero clue what they're talking about. No, it actually did increase inflation. And the left is so focused on green, renewable energy. Can you hear me now? It's so focused on these green initiatives and they don't talk about the downsides to them. For example, in California, they wanted all the cars to go to electric, but nobody talks about the fact that we don't even have the infrastructure for everybody in that state to have an electric car. Even if we wanted to do this nationwide, we don't have the infrastructure. Let's start there. And when those batteries on those cars die, you're done for. They're like $30,000. You're done for. Also, a lot of people who installed those solar panels on their house, they're having a hard time now that they want to put their houses back on the market. They're having a hard time selling their houses. It actually brings down the property values of their house, right? Another issue that has been going on too is that a lot of things that people don't think about, like say for example, you're somewhere like Miami, where they have a long hurricane season. If electricity goes out, you want to have access to gas in emergency situations like that because it doesn't rely on an electric grid. That's one thing I will say that I had to get used to being here in South America. The vast majority of stoves are gas stoves, so you have to turn the gas on and light it. But if there's ever a situation where the power goes out, we'll still be able to do things like cook. So the left is trying to push on us a hyper reliance on these green energy sources that are not always the best option in any given situation. So I'm going to show y'all another speech that he gave. Give me 1 second. Again, if you're just now coming in, I'm reporting on the passing of Representative Doug LaMalfa. He is a California congressman. He passed away at 65. The details are unknown, but by all accounts, this was a wholesome, family-oriented man of the people.
Sure. I wanted to speak a little bit about the SAVE Act and what it's supposed to do.
So this is him talking about the SAVE Act, which, that has been, they've been going back and forth about that in the courts.
Sure, election integrity for our country. And, the commentary that this is somehow going to disenfranchise people who normally vote is just part of the rhetoric of this place that obscures that our elections aren't completely secure when we have millions of illegal immigrants in this country that have been given driver's licenses, IDs, without having passed the muster of actually doing citizenship efforts. So why should that apply to elections? You already see municipalities around this country trying to give the right, the privilege of votes to people that are not here legally. So in the previous example given, if someone has had a recent marriage, but their name doesn't quite match yet because they haven't gotten their legal documents, there's a provision for doing that called provisional voting that you can utilize at that time of election and then go through the process of proving, yes, this is my citizenship, and in order to ensure we have elections with integrity. So when our elections are key to deciding who makes the laws in this country, who makes the policy decisions, they need to be secure. And so if we can't trust the people in office that are actually chosen by American citizens, then what exactly do we have?
Okay, so there is late Representative Doug LaMalfa speaking on the importance of maintaining election integrity via verifying identity. He was a national representative at the federal level. So this is going to be a problem for Democrats moving forward. Now, first of all, his seat already got gerrymandered. Y'all know California passed the measure to redistrict. So they basically, his seat, let's say, so this, when they do a special election, for now, is still drawn under the Republican lines. So a Republican will take the seat, right? But if this was a situation like coming the next election cycle, that district has been redrawn and it will be a Democrat seat. So either way it goes, we're gonna lose that seat at some point. It's just happening at an inopportune time that all this is going on. Now, with that said, there's a very thin margin in Congress right now in the House of Representatives. There's 218 Republicans and 213 Democrats. And Thomas Massey votes against the Republicans quite often. So we literally right now probably only have a 1-seat margin. It's going to be very tight. And this is why I am urging, if you are a conservative, you got to get out, and if it makes a difference, if it matters in your state, especially in these swing districts, make sure that you are going out and you're doing your due diligence and you are voting. Now, I'm going to show y'all some reactions to his unaliving. Now, I'm going to go to this guy's channel.
We have some major.
His name is Aaron Parnas1. Given the comments, I'm under the impression that this is a left-leaning TikTok account, but the comments are appalling.
News right now, according to Jake Sherman at Punchbowl News, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, a Republican who represented Northern California and chaired the Congressional Western Caucus, has passed away at the age of 65. Congressman LaMalfa was a serving member of Congress. We don't have any information as to how the congressman passed away, but I know there are going to be a lot of questions about what this means for the House majority. Right now, the House majority after LaMalfa's passing is 218 to 213. That leaves Republicans in the House of Representatives with just a 2-seat majority. But with Thomas Massey consistently voting against leadership, it's really just a 1-seat majority. And this was obviously unexpected, especially after Marjorie Taylor Greene left the House of Representatives late last night before midnight. Spread the word, follow along, stay up to date on all the news that you need to know about. There will be much more to come very soon. We have some major news.
So you guys probably can't see this. Let me see if I can make myself small and make the comment section big. I don't think you can see it. But anyways, in the comments, Sarah says, it just keeps being the wrong Republican, implying that she wished that Donald Trump would have been the one that passed away. And for these people who claim to be the good people in the Republican Party to be the party of evil, they sure take pride in wishing death on everybody that does not think like them. And it's extremely sad. I remember when Joe Biden was in office and Kamala Harris was in office, not one time did I ever wish death or any type of physical harm on them. Not one time did I even think about it. When I had a problem about their policies, I said something about it. But even then, if they did something that I agreed with, I said, okay, this is a good thing. I agree with this, even though as a whole, I don't necessarily go for this administration, right? So it's like they exposed their colors when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, but it's just really disheartening. And I find myself having to pray and ask God to help me have understanding, compassion, and forgiveness for people who go around saying things like this. And they try to make it seem like this type of political violence or political malice goes both ways. And that's just absolutely not the case. I've told y'all before, I used to be a liberal way back when I was younger and in college and lacked discernment, lacked the life experience, and lacked common sense. And I remember being miserable at that time. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I started becoming more and more conservative when I started taking responsibility for my life. And when I began working on me, when I became a happier person, when I started taking responsibility for my life, then naturally my views and outlooks on life became more conservative. And I just kind of think back to the days when I was a liberal and just remember my mindset was just so negative. I didn't have a can-do attitude. I had an external locus of control, and every little thing could bother me or knock me off of my square. And I was always blaming other people for why my life turned out the way that it did. I'm actually quite ashamed of the way that I conducted myself during that time in my life, but I can tell you that I wasn't a happy individual. And I can also tell you, as somebody who, especially like being a woman who has become more conservative, and that has also led me to doing things like taking care of myself more, taking care of my home more, being more like when I've been on jobs, trying to put my best foot forward and be one of the hardest workers, not because I think it will gain me any type of favor with my employer, because I'm always ready to move around, but so that I can build my character, so I can build my mentality, so I can build my mental fortitude. And what it's led is to me having the worst experiences with the most evil liberal women. I'll be quite honest with you. If you are a woman, the worst thing, if you are a woman who is self-accountable, who takes care of yourself, who takes pride in your looks, who hasn't hopped on this whole body fat acceptance thing, but you're really taking your health and stuff seriously, the worst thing that you can do is work for a liberal woman. You will experience true evil. You will experience true narcissism. You will experience what it's like to have somebody come into work every day and try to figure out how they can disturb your peace and destroy your life. And I mean that quite literally. If you've ever interacted with a lot of these liberals online, and I know some Republicans do it, I know this happened during the Charlie Kirk assassination, but I would argue far more times it's going to be liberal women who are the ones trying to get you fired, call your job, stalk you. They do all kind of weird stuff just because they don't like you, or just because you make them upset, or just because they feel like you're outshining them in some type of way. Yet these women claim to be the most empathetic. These women claim to be the people with good hearts that are just loving and kindness. But as soon as they don't get their way, you see their true and ugly colors, right? So it really pissed me off when I read this comment, and this woman was like, it just keeps being the wrong Republican, in reference to the passing of Doug LaMalfa. Again, she was taking a shot at President Trump. So Libertarian Matt commented, party of empathy. You know, of course it was sarcasm. And Dirty Waters B says, empathy died when you guys reelected Trump. So you hate us because we decided that the country was going downhill, which it was. I absolutely hate it when Democrats try to act like the economy just got bad. No. You know, y'all know I used to work in the club. Y'all know what club I'm talking about. I've made no secrets about it. And the index, the dancer index, is real. I knew that we were going into a recession the spring break of 2021. How did I know that? That would be the time that I made my most money because it's income tax season. During that particular March, I made regular money. Which told me that people are using this income tax money to pay for necessities in the home. And back then, I was trying to ring the alarm. I was saying something about us going into a recession, and people didn't want to listen to me. They thought that I was crazy. And now look at the situation. People got upset with us because basically we had wide open borders during a time where we're going into an economic recession. You're letting people in this country unvetted. It's already tough economically. Now we have to compete for jobs. And people are upset because we said no today, because we chose us. Democrats need to learn, and I know a lot of Democrats don't believe in God, or they don't believe in the Bible, or they say they believe in God or the Bible, but they really reject a lot of the common sense teachings. They reject a lot of the basics and fundamentalism. And no, I'm not some, I respect everybody's religion. I'm not some hardcore, there are some hardcore conservatives when it comes to Christianity. And I'm not that, but I do believe that America is a Christian nation that was founded on Christian principles, and we tolerate people from other religions, meaning we're not gonna try to stone you to death or throw you in prison because you believe in something else. But fundamentally, at our core, we have Christian values. And even though we believe in separation of church and state, this is not a theocracy. A lot of the principles of the Constitution were founded upon the Christian Bible. And I think that deserves some type of respect, right? And a lot of Christians forget that charity starts at home and it spreads itself abroad. And that's not an exact quote from the Bible, but I'm going to find the scripture that we use to reference this. Give me 1 second. It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And I find myself just being so disappointed how little empathy and compassion that the Democrats have for other people that come from the same place they do, that we have a shared heritage. We're all Americans. And it's like they hate us. They hate us just for saying, no, we got to take care of us first. Okay, so this is the scripture that comes from 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Meaning that God will show more mercy to somebody who does not believe in him than he will to somebody who is uncharitable in their household, that does not take care of their household. And that's all Republicans have been trying to get Democrats to do, is to take care of us first. They want us to just completely give all of our resources away as our country rapidly slips into decline. And they think that we're evil for saying, hold on, we just don't have it to give, especially right now. They think that that's wrong, when there's a biblical foundation for taking care of your household first. And America is our household. Have long held the position that the liberals is the #1 impediment in the Black community, and are, simply because conservatives are outnumbered politically by a lot. They are. They absolutely are. Do you know why conservatives? First of all, I feel like most, especially now, because the left has just went so batshit crazy. I feel like most people, most independents are conservative leaning. And it's not because they got more conservative, it's because the left went crazy, right? But let me tell you why a lot of Americans don't like conservatism, because it's a call to personal accountability and responsibility. Shout out to AP on AP for Life, but he was having a discussion on a panel about the issues that plague the Black community. And one solution that he gave for all of our problems is that I challenge all Black people, especially Black men, to focus on your household. That's it. That's the only thing. Focus on your household. Focus on your wife. Focus on your kids. Focus on working and paying your bills. And then you can see how your life will turn around. So much of the ideology of liberalism is teaching us to be helpless. It's learned helplessness, meaning if somebody doesn't come rescue you, then you are going to be stuck in your predicament forever, right? And that's absolutely not true. You know, I'm not a person who believes 1000% in rugged individualism, because I believe that we all need help at times, right? But also, help is for people who help themselves. Shout out to Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter when he said, help will always be available at Hogwarts to those who deserves it. What makes you think that you deserve help and you're not willing to do the work? A lot of people, they expect the government to meet them all the way. They expect God to meet them all the way. They expect their parents and the people in their community to meet them all the way. And they're not even willing to go halfway. They're not even willing to go half on it. But they expect everybody else in their life to put in all this extra work. And conservatism is a rejection of that. So when conservatives tell Democrats, hey, you don't need all of this government welfare, government assistance, what it is it's a call to action for you to be responsible for yourself. And I have a very measured view on that. I do believe that there are some social programs and welfare programs that are necessary, but they aren't to be abused. And when we see that they're being abused or that people are falling into cycles of being trapped generationally, and I don't even want to say trapped because at some point you're choosing to be there, being trapped generationally in cycles of welfare. I mean, there are people who have an apartment on welfare, and then their children, when they pass away, their children are inheriting the welfare apartment. That's not something you should want for yourself because the conditions of those apartments are terrible. The environment, it's hard for people to grow and for you to reach your full potential if you remain comfortable in those environments. But yet Democrats hear somebody like me speaking like that, and now I'm anti-Black. I'm anti-Black because I'm telling a Black person that you can grow, that you can do, that you can be better, that you can achieve, that you're just as capable. Now I'm an Uncle Tom. Now I'm anti-Black. Liberalism is poison for men. It turns our brothers gay, coupled with Dems' penchant for mass jailings. Let me tell you something about the Democrats. Nothing about their doctrine is wholesome. Everything leads to degeneracy. And I want to be very clear because I have absolutely, when I see a gay man on the street being gay, I have absolutely no problem with them. I've met some gay men who are good people, and I personally, this is my belief. I believe that I don't believe this is a nature versus nurture thing. I do believe y'all seen them. Y'all seen little boys. Come on now. Y'all seen little boys who from the moment they were a baby, they were walking with a switch and flipping the wrist. Every little boy that we grew up saying, oh, he gonna be gay, they grew up to be gay. But then I also believe that culturally, right, degeneracy is being pushed on to our society to where it feeds a spirit of lust, where children, especially our young boys who wouldn't otherwise engage in that type of activity, are being exposed to it way too young. And it's been being promoted to them way too young in the form of porn. It's constantly being mentioned. It's like I have to constantly listen and watch what my daughter is watching because they're always trying to sneak this stuff into there. And it makes them curious at a very young age. They start experimenting with this stuff at a very young age. And next thing you know, it's a situation where they were influenced to engage in that type of activity. And a feeling ain't got no gender. Once people see they like a feeling, it's very hard to get them to stop doing something. So it's like everything about liberalism promotes degeneracy. It promotes excess. They have an argument, they have a counter when people say, hey, if you want to save money, stop drinking your Starbucks every single day. Well, what is that going to do for me? Hey, a little goes a long way. If you're spending $7 on Starbucks and you stop spending $7 on Starbucks every day, you might not save hundreds of dollars, but you're going to save enough. You're going to save what? You're going to save $49 a week. That adds up to something. That's almost $200 in 1 month. You put that into a Roth IRA or a savings account over time, it's going to do something. They're always against it. When you talk to liberal women who are a part of this fat acceptance movement, when you talk to liberal women about losing weight, eating healthy, cooking at home, well, you can still be fat and be healthy. Just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy, and just because you're fat doesn't mean you're not healthy. And weight is a part of genetics. And BMI, it's just like anytime you have a conversation about self-accountability, there's always a problem. liberalism tied our hands, yeah. But at this point, people are choosing to stay bound to that because they don't want to change. It's liberalism is for people who want to be comfortable. Period. It's for people who want to be comfortable. It's for people who want to overindulge in certain behaviors that are not wholesome and make everybody else seem wrong when we reject that. Another thing this dude said, you made fun of us for decades for showing empathy. This is the liberalism you wanted. It's now the liberalism you got. Eat shit. So this is what this liberal said in regards to somebody sarcastically saying, y'all are basically saying y'all are supposed to be the party of empathy, but we have this Republican Congressman, Doug LaMalfa, who passed away, and now y'all are saying y'all wish it would have been Donald Trump. So how are y'all supposed to be the party of empathy when everywhere we look and turn, y'all are always wishing death on Republicans? And Democrats, like in their mind, they have convinced themselves that they are empathetic, kind people, when I have not seen that to be the case. I remember, and I'm going to tell on myself, I remember the day after Donald Trump first got elected in 2016. I was going to Texas State University, and nobody thought that Donald Trump was going to win. As a matter of fact, I was like, oh, this is a shoo-in for Hillary Clinton. Again, at that time, I was young, indoctrinated. Most of my professors were low-key, high-key liberals, right? And I was just poisoned with that mindset, unhappy in a relationship that I hated. It was just not a good time in my life. But I remember the day after the election, there was a huge protest on campus. And like we see a lot of these like young white men walking around with MAGA hats that we had never seen. And they held this, like, they were like, we're out. We're coming. You know, so they were like, hold on now, we're about to come out, we're about to pop our ish. And I remember how we yelled and screamed at those young men. And like, I didn't push anybody, but people were pushing them, threatening to beat them up. And nobody said anything. Nobody came to their defense. And they were genuinely standing there being calm and polite, trying to talk to us and explain to us their reasons why. I remember one guy was like, well, I voted for Donald Trump because of his stance on Israel. And then people were like yelling at him, like, but he's a racist. He's a like, and these are things that we have been indoctrinated. And at that point, I didn't know, I didn't understand. It took me going through one term of Trump's presidency and realizing I'm okay. We came out unscathed to where I became indifferent. Like, I never had full-on Trump derangement syndrome. I think I was mad about Trump winning that day, maybe for like a week, and I got over it, you know? And then my life just began to unfold in a different way. So what I'm saying is I remember how vicious we were at that time, including me, and I wasn't even the worst of the worst. And what it is society teaches liberals that we can be as disrespectful to people as we want to be because we're doing it in the name of what we believe is the right thing or what's righteous, or that we're on the right side of history. So because you're on the right side of history, that gives you a free pass to be as disrespectful to people as you want to be. Okay, so yeah, that's that story. Let's see what a Republican had to say about it.
California Republican Congressman Doug LaMalfa has died. We don't know what happened. Family hasn't released any information yet. Yeah, that between the redistricting and the momentum that Democrats have, that seat's going to flip blue. Got a special election in New Jersey for Mickey Sherrill's old seat. That seat's going to flip blue. that's going to go blue. Then you've got Sylvester Turner's old seat that's going to go blue. Yeah, that's going to add 3 more Democrats to Congress. You know, it's work, folks. You can't ever give up. You can't ever give up. You've got to stay focused. You've got to stay focused. Got to keep at it, keep banging away. Elections aren't every 4 years. Elections are all the damn time. Stay focused, keep busy, keep the momentum, keep the wind in our back, and we'll keep doing it.
And the great thing now, what I will say, I'll get to this question in a minute. The great thing about this time in history, because I know before so much of how we voted was based on race. You know, if you're a minority, you mostly go for Democrats. If you're a white, you could pretty much go either way, but most of the Republican base was white. And now that is shifting. I think like the main holdout will probably be the Black community, because majority of Black women are not going to stop voting Democrat. They're just not. And a lot of that has to do with the elitist attitude that we have in the Black community. And I don't even want to get into that. But Black people, for a group of people who claims to be so oppressed, are the most elite, especially Black college educated Black women are the most elitist people that you will ever meet, period. But what we do see is a shift happening with a lot of Black men. It's not the majority yet, but they're coming along as they continue to experience the negative consequences and effects of what a liberal society has to offer. They are rejecting that more and more. There are a lot of Hispanics who are second generation Hispanics who are here, who've been here for a long time, whose citizenship is not, you can't deport them, right? And they're deciding to vote Republican because the left have left them. So what I'm saying is there is a societal shift to where party lines aren't necessarily falling along racial lines and racial divisions the way that they used to. And you're gonna see more and more a lot of young minorities, a lot of young people of color rejecting liberal ideology. The more that they continue to show their true colors, the more that we see that this system is not working for us. So I think we're gonna see a shift. And for those of y'all who don't believe what I'm saying, all you need to do is look to Latin America. Latin America is not all white people. You have mestizos, you have people who are Black and Spanish, you have people who are Spanish and indigenous, you have people who are they have so many mixes down there. And just because they're not a majority like Anglo white doesn't mean that they always vote liberal along party lines. As a matter of fact, if you look at a map of what's going on in Latin America, the world is shifting right now. Okay, so but what we have to understand is the pendulum can swing at any time. So, don't think because you won a battle, you won the war. A victory is a victory, a win is a win, but we have to keep pressing forward. And we want to do it. We want to do it in a way that's righteous. We never want to become as suppressive as the Democrats were to us during those Biden-Harris administration, but we also have the right to boldly reject their arguments. This is what you have to do. Like when I talk to liberals now, and they want to call me racist for my viewpoints or tell me, any kind of name, you're racist, you're transphobic, I tell them, call it what you want to. Call it what you want to. Because what they're trying to do is draw you into an emotional argument where now you're having to defend your character and where you're begging for their approval. That's what they're trying to do. And like, once they see that you don't care, then they've lost. They are genuinely taken aback when you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm all that. I'm all of that. I'll be all of that. they are taken aback. I had met Colombians that look just like me. Yes, there are Afro-Colombians who are like, look straight from Africa, never mixed. So you asked me what was my deciding moment when I decided to leave the Democrat Party. 2020 election. 2020 election is when I turned away. Now, when I moved towards conservatism, it was during this last election cycle. But definitely the 2020 election was when I decided to dissociate myself from that party and go independent. And it was when they rigged the primaries a second time. During the primary, they rigged it a second time. We know what happened the first time, with Bernie Sanders. They did it again in the 2020 primaries. And then after they did it, they were shouting, vote blue no matter who. And it's like, no, why when we don't get, it's very clear that if you're a Democrat, you don't get to choose your representative who runs for you in the general election. The party picks who they are going to run, and they ensure that that person wins the primary at all costs. And they do whatever they have to do to make that happen. And my thinking then was, well, at least the Republicans don't like Donald Trump, but at least they let him run. They gave him a fair shot. Oh yeah, it was blatant. It was blatant both times. And then the third time when they just outrightly installed Kamala Harris, after they could have had a whole primary, matter of fact, RFK and Marianne Williamson run and they sabotaged them. What state was that had to sue? They sued the DNC. It wasn't Maryland. I forgot, y'all. But a state sued the DNC for trying to change the rules at the last minute. But yeah, it was crazy. So another story that I want to turn to right now, I'm going to go to my X account. Now, I saw this list pop up on Facebook yesterday, but I'm like, this has to be fake. But apparently Donald Trump reposted it. I'm going to show y'all. Now, this is all allegedly. Y'all, this is all allegedly. Everything I'm about to say. There's no proof, but this is a developing story. I'm not sure if anything will come of it, but I want to make y'all aware of the situation. So let's go to my X account. This is from Fire News. It's been reported that Venezuela's chief intelligence officer has reportedly sought asylum in the United States and has disclosed a comprehensive list of politicians who allegedly received bribes from Maduro and Venezuelan drug narcos. Now, I'm not sure if this is credible, and I'm actually going to go to and this is why I featured it. So I saw it on Facebook. Somebody posted this, and I'm like, this has got to be fake. Well, then Lou on LB Nation covered it, and he was like, Donald Trump reposted this. So I was like, hold on now. There might be some truth to it. Now, when I look at this list, the reason why I think it might be credible is because this is not bipartisan. There are Democrats and Republicans whose names are on this list. Among them, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska is a Republican. Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona. Ruben Gallego, Democrat, Arizona. Alex Padilla, Democrat, California. Adam Schiff, Democrat, California. Michael Benet, Democrat, Colorado. John Hickenlooper, Democrat, Colorado. Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut. Chris Murphy, Democrat, Connecticut. Chris Coons, that's an interesting name, Democrat, Delaware. John Ossoff, Democrat, Georgia. Raphael Warnock, Democrat, Georgia. Brian Schatz, Democrat, Hawaii. Mazzy Irono, Democrat, Hawaii. Dick Durbin, Democrat, Illinois. Tammy Ducksworth, Democrat, Illinois. Chuck Grassley, Republican, Iowa. Johnny Ernst, Republican, Iowa. Mitch McConnell, Republican, Kentucky. Rand Paul, Republican, Kentucky. Bill Cassidy, Republican Louisiana. Susan Collins, Republican Maine. Angus King, Independent Maine. Chris Van Hollen, Democrat Maryland. Angela Also Brooks, Democrat Maryland. Elizabeth Warren, I told y'all she's been a snake. I knew she was a snake since 2020. Democrat Massachusetts. Ed Markey, Democrat Massachusetts. Gary Peters, Democrat Michigan. Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat Michigan. Amy Klobuchar, who might be running as the governor of Minnesota now that Tim Walz has dropped out due to the mass daycare fraud that was exposed by Nick Shirley. Tina Smith, Democrat Minnesota. Roger Wicker, Republican Mississippi. Deb Fisher, Republican Nebraska. Jackie Rosen, Democrat Nevada. Catherine Cortez Masto, Democrat Nevada. Jean Shaheen, Democrat New Hampshire. Maggie Hassan, Democrat New Hampshire. Cory Booker, not surprised, Democrat New Jersey. Andy Kim, Democrat New Jersey. Martin Heinrich, Democrat New Mexico. Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat New Mexico. Chuck Schumer, anybody surprised? Democrat New York. Kristen Gillibrand, Democrat New York. Tom Tillis, Republican North Carolina. And James Langford, Republican Oklahoma. Did I get everybody? Oh, Jack Reed, Democrat Rhode Island. Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat Rhode Island. John Thune, Republican South Dakota. John Cornyn from my great state of Texas, Republican. This is gonna surprise y'all, but maybe not, because how he's been acting as of late, during like how he acted during those Senate confirmations, really put me off to him and made me ask, who's paying you? Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont. Peter Welch, Democrat Vermont. Mark Warner, Democrat Virginia. Tim Kaine, Democrat Virginia. Patty Murray, Democrat Washington. Maria Cantwell, Democrat Washington. Jim Justice, Republican West Virginia. Tammy Baldwin, Democrat Wisconsin. Y'all, that was a mighty long list, but if it is true, it explains a lot. And I have said this in previous videos. If you have watched me before, I have said it's not only the vote. It's not only them wanting to get their voter base up that is keeping a lot of these politicians voting for policies that or choosing not to vote for policies that would place control on illegal immigration. I long suspected that they were getting paid. I long suspected that they were either getting paid or that they were being threatened by the cartel. I've talked about this on my channel as recently as yesterday, how during the Biden-Harris administration, we thought that when they had wide open borders, it was just so that they could say, come one, come all, and they were being charitable. But what a lot of y'all didn't know is that big money was being made. Why? Children were trafficked across the border. 500,000 children went missing. Mayor Eric Adams admitted to 200,000 children that were supposed to be in his, on camera, 200,000 children being missing. He admitted to that, said they can't find the kid. Pam Bondi and them still trying to find all those kids. Do you think they just went missing by accident? No, they were shipped. Y'all know I'm in South America right now. It is common for poor families to sell their children into trafficking rings, sell a whole child into trafficking rings or to the cartel, to be a cartel soldier, so they can have some money to pay the bills. Who is their primary customer? The United States of America. Now, some of y'all are going to really think I'm crazy. I've done videos about the tunnels. Anyway, see, now y'all going to think I'm crazy. Y'all going to think I'm crazy. But anyway, the drugs, do y'all think that these politicians were allowing that into our border, across our border, and they're not getting anything in return? I think that's just out of the kindness of their heart. Absolutely not. So it's not just the votes. I think a lot of Republicans, because they don't know that that was going on, are just focused on, oh, they just want to fix the votes, or they want to turn these swing states into permanent, forever Democrat states. And it's like, no, that's a part of it, but they're getting paid. They were getting paid right then in the immediate. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a trip over to Lou's channel on LB Nation. And I'm going to react to a video that he did about this matter.
That allegedly took kickbacks from the Venezuelan government. And you also have an ex-spy who is now telling all and writing letters, who wrote a letter to President Trump telling him about what Venezuela was doing with Democrats. Allegedly took kickbacks from the Venezuelan government. And you also have an ex-spy who is now telling all and writing letters, who wrote a letter to President Trump telling him about what Venezuela was doing with Democrat senators. And a lot of people say, hey, this kind of explains why Democrats were so mad. Now, just a few days ago, I held out on this story where Trump was posting all over Truth Social, right? Trump just posted about Dominion machines and voting machine fraud. He posted that. He says that this is not a coincidence. A Venezuelan military intelligence whistleblower confirmed the CIA outsources election rigging technology like Smartmatic and Dominion from Venezuela. So this is something that Trump was hinting on. He even posted a video. Mind you, a whole bunch of Venezuelans are celebrating, but yet the Democrats are not. But why? Well, let's actually take a look at this list.
I'm going to interject and say that I think that we should move away from electronic ballots. Bring back the paper ballot, and there needs to be federal officials. The thing is, I mean, there's a way that you could taint them, but I feel like at every voting center, there needs to be some type of accountability, federal officials to ensure that the votes are counted right then and there. I don't know, but I feel like with these machines, there are way too many problems. We saw what happened in Iowa with those machines that came from Pete Buttigieg's friend during the 2020 election. So we saw what they did to Bernie Sanders. So I'm not even going to get into that. Let's continue.
This is the list that's making its rounds. And ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I'm not really surprised, right? Again, Trump not only posting about it, but yet the Democrats' reaction, and their reaction is literally everywhere. The entire mainstream media has spoken about and made a list of Democrats who have not even come out in support of taking out an actual dictator. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is where it gets crazy, right? So here's a list of all U.S. senators who got kickbacks from Venezuela's regime, drugs, traffic money, according to Maduro's ex-chief of intelligence. Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, and Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, etc. took money. Well, here is, and again, this is all pretty much unconfirmed. I don't want to come out here and tell you, oh my God, this is all confirmed. But this is what's going around all over X. This is what Trump, the president of the United States of America, is posting. And it's starting to kind of make sense to a degree, the basically friction that exists between Democrats and Trump at this point. So it's been reported that Venezuela's chief intelligence officer has reportedly sought asylum in the United States and has disclosed a comprehensive list of politicians who allegedly received financial bribes from Maduro and the Venezuelan drug narcos. And ladies and gentlemen, again, unconfirmed reports, but this is what's being reported here from many different articles and sources. And breaking, Venezuela's former chief of national intelligence, Hugo Carvajal, has officially released every U.S. senator who is in the Venezuelan list of politicians who have been receiving millions of dollars in kickbacks from the Maduro regime.
These socialist regimes have been working overtime to destroy our country from within. You know, Trump has talked about that before, the enemy from within. And how do you destroy a nation? Well, first you start by flooding open the borders. You promote things like, I'm so happy, you know, even I talked about the fact that yes, oil is a huge factor in Donald Trump's decision to invade Venezuela and capture President Maduro. But the fact of the matter is this: you cannot let another country flood your society with illegal substances to where you have hundreds of thousands of people overdosing on them annually. No nation should be allowed to do that to the United States. But for so long, we have had, instead of the left preaching a message of, here's the thing, a person can be the biggest crackhead all day long, but if they can't get any crack, they will be forced to be sober. That's just the reality of the situation. But you have the left continually advocating for legalizing hardcore drugs and substances as if that's the way that we should be living. Go to countries where they have a huge drug problem and you will see that the population is not half as productive as what they could be. It literally slows the growth of a nation. I'm not even talking about marijuana here. I'll give you a pass on that. But the cocaine, the heroin, all of that, absolutely not. Yet you have a lot of these senators who have allegedly sold our country out, and whether or not they're on this list or not, a lot of them, the policies that they support, have already told me that they've sold out the United States.
And Venezuelan drug trafficking organizations that make up his government in exchange for using their government positions and influence to undermine President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's ongoing war with the narcotics terrorists. Every one of these senators is guilty of providing aid and comfort to the enemy during a time of war and has the blood of their fellow American citizens, hundreds of thousands whom died of drug overdoses every year in the hands of these criminals, drug trafficking organizations that bring deadly drugs into the country. And now there was a point before I show you this list and before we go to the names. Trump was asked, why didn't he tell Congress about taking out Maduro? And a lot of people in the comments, they were saying, well, Trump is smart because somebody in Congress would have leaked it. And Maduro would have probably been able to, go to his bunker. He says he said he had a bunker. And that's why Trump literally said that they didn't need to know.
Any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved.
Sure. We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policies.
What type of country do we live in where you can't even trust your senators or members of Congress to not go snitch on us to the ops? We have a Congress that is bought and paid for. And here's the thing, they know it. They know it. I bet you if they put enough effort into it, they could figure out who are the leaks. That's the problem A compromised Congress, which in turn used Trump as a straw man deflect. Congress is broken beyond repair. 1 million different bribers, bribing all of them separately, shaking my head. And you know what the issue is here, Clown Me? A lot of conservatives, we know, like a lot of us are not surprised to see these Republican names on the list. We know that there's a rhino party that is the ops, and we're willing to call them out. The Democrat mentality is that their party can do no wrong, and anybody on their side is much better than any Republican. Like, they rather deal with a bought and paid for Congress that is a majority Democrat than they would rather have an honest Republican in office. It's just the reality of the matter. It's just the reality of the matter. But yet they call us a cult. A lot of Republicans are not happy with the fact that more people are not going to jail, and the swamp is not really being drained, or at least it's not being drained fast enough. To which I'll say, let's give it a little bit more time. Let's see, because here's the thing: you have to build these cases. I remember I was playing a video yesterday, and it was a young Colombian American. And he was like, if Trump was so concerned about the drug trafficking, why did he release President Hernandez of Honduras, who was convicted and given 45 years to life? Why did he pardon him? Well, obviously, it's because Hernandez rolled on Maduro. Quite obvious. You pardon him this year is because he rolled on Maduro. They have to build their case. Understand, Maduro still has to go to trial. He's going to get tried in the Southern District of New York. As y'all know, they fired Maureen Comey. I think that's because they were preparing for this case, and I don't think that they trust her to try this case. She did such a horrible job on the Diddy case. One might even say that she intentionally sabotaged that case. So they fired her. She's suing the DOJ right now. If y'all don't remember, at the beginning of the year, El Chapo's son and his entire family was flown into the United States, and he was snitching for immunity. So they have a lot of information. They know a lot. What I'll say is give them time to build a case, and then we will see.
The implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Mr. President, one of the only people who watched this live.
Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result.
Congress did not need to know about this operation beforehand. And in fact, some Congress members were even reporting that they were misled by inside sources in the White House. So apparently they were playing a game of chess where they were misleading as to what was going on. Because you got to understand, Venezuela was already surrounded by the United States of America. We knew something would happen at some point. By actually telling Congress, they would have probably told Venezuelans because of, again, what's coming down here.
You know how you find the rat, the snitch? You feed them information that's not true, and you watch them come back. Or you watch people respond or move differently as a result of the information that they took back. That's who you find out who the snitch is. I'm sure they already know who's snitching. And it's probably more than one.
From this ex-CEI chief, plant. But again, we can't believe everybody, and we shouldn't believe everybody. Let me actually back out here. Let's actually look at some of the names. Some of the names here. Mark Kelly, Lisa Markowski, Ruben Gaiello, Alex Padilla, Adam Schiff, Michael Bennett, Richard Blumenthal, Chris Murphy, who was very mad about this, who at some point did not. He hated, and I mean he hated Maduro. So is this real? Is what this whistleblower saying real, we really don't know. But one thing we do know, and Alyssa Slotkin is here, Amy Klobuchar is here, Tina Smith. I think the 7 senators who, according to the 7 senators who basically, the seditious 6, are pretty much in this list as well. So this thing is taking a turn for
The seditious 6, he's referring to the Republicans that are always giving us problems. Let me say this. I feel like if these allegations are found to be true, all of these senators should be tried for treason. This is alleged, but if this is found to be true, all of these senators should be tried for treason, and they should face the maximum penalty of the law, whatever that may be. I don't care what it is. It could be death by public hanging. Because anybody else who wants to run for U.S. Senate needs to know that if you try this, if you do this, you're putting your life on the line. And ask themselves if they're worth it. I don't care if it was a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care. Anybody who is found to have ratted us out, sold our country out, taken money, they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Whatever that may be, up to and including death. And I don't wish death on nobody. I wouldn't take pleasure in it. But if this is true, this should serve as an example. Because the fact of the matter is, if this is true, the results of their actions have led to people being raped who would not have otherwise been raped had these criminals not been let into the country, and had we not had people advocating for these policies or lack thereof to control the situation. Many people have died due to the trafficking of these illicit substances into our country. Not to mention all the children that have been trafficked and abused and unalived and misused that we still cannot find. These people aided and abetting in hurting children, hundreds of thousands of children to be exact, not just a few. So yes, I believe that they should face the maximum penalty if any of this is found to be true. And I think that they should do the executions publicly, no gas chamber. Go back to the old school ways. I want to see a public execution of all of them, be them Democrat or Republican. If this list is true,
the worse for the Democrat narrative as to why. And look, we even got John Cornyn on the list, John Thune on the list. So again, kickbacks. Apparently, Thune. A lot of people are saying, "Wow, I can't believe John Thune is in this list." It's pretty crazy. So again, let's actually go to this video, right? Because this is the video. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, this all starting to make sense."
okay, so guys, I don't have time to review the rest of the video, but he talks about how the voting machine, it's a good video. Y'all need to go watch it on LB Nation's channel. But he talks about how the voting machines might be rigged, right? And a forensic scientist analyzed the papers that were used to feed into the voting machine, the voting ballots, and have found some discrepancies, right? So this is very interesting. I'm interested to see how the story about the kickbacks unfold, especially considering that I have talked about that being a possibility several times on my channel, y'all. I've been saying it's not just compassion. On behalf of these senators, maybe it's the American public is dumb and they're following in behind them. But like, there's a reason why there's been this media train, and they've had so much support in pushing this propaganda to further their narratives. There's a reason why the establishment has been completely on board. And it has to, I've said this before, they have to be getting some money out of it, because ain't no way. This is just willful ignorance or willful suicidal ignorance on their behalf. And I've been said it's more than just messing with the votes. So we shall see how this plays out. With that said, Chloe, thank you so much for popping in, participating in the chat. Y'all hit the like button on the way out and share my video if you care. I will be going back live tonight around 8 o'clock. I'm only going to come on for an hour to talk about immigration in Japan, as well as Trump putting Greenland back on the table. So I will see y'all tonight. Goodbye.